Pretty full plate of college wrestling action going down on Saturday, but first, my oldest Lucy still isn't feeling good, but my wife survived her 20-plus hour trip back to the U.S. from Singapore just in time to make dinner. I'm actually kidding. We picked up dinner on the way home from the airport, and to be quite honest, I do most of the cooking because I have the job that has the home office. She's like super awesome at her job. So anyway, back with the homestead back to normal, save the kiddo being sick, I'd like to welcome you to Short Time Shots, a semi-daily podcast aimed at giving you, the wrestling fan, all you need to know about the night's or previous days' wrestling news in a short, somewhat funny or not format. I'm Jason Bryant. I've skipped over the Octoberfests, and I've gone right to the porters and stouts. There were 24 duels in Division I on Saturday, with most of them taking place in the capital region of New York, where Mr. Awesome Frank Popolizio hosted the Journeymen MyHouse Northeast Duals. We saw a lot of good individual action and a few upsets, but the biggest one team-wise came as Utah Valley knocked off number 15 Rutgers 24-14. Rutgers jumped out to a big lead early with a pair of major decisions at 125 and 133. After Utah Valley's Matt Findlay picked up a fall at 141, Rutgers Anthony Ashnault matched it with a fall of his own at 149. That gave Rutgers a 14-4 lead after 4 matches. Now say it in your Red Dawn voice, Wolverines! Reeled off 6 straight wins to close things out, the biggest likely being Grant LaMont's 9-6 win over John Van Brill at 157. Tanner Orndorff's 9-2 win over Matthew Correnti sealed the deal after 197. Utah Valley did fight pretty hard earlier in the day, and that's not just one of those cliche headlines when a team gets blown out. Yes, we've already seen a few of those headlines already with fighting hard in a 48-3 loss or something like that. Yeah, actually, a 48-3 loss means you actually didn't fight hard. You know who did, though? Utah Valley. Number 12, Nebraska, which was favored by like 19.5 points according to that one online sportsbook that's now throwing out wrestling lines. They needed a crucial win at 197 by Eric Schultz to avoid the upset. Even without Zeke Moisey for the duel, the Huskers held on 19-15. Number 12, Nebraska went 3-0 on the day and also picked up a 28-9 win over Drexel and a 21-15 win over the University of Virginia. No, we did not see Louie Hayes versus Zeke Moisey. Matter of fact, Moisey wrestled just one match on the day where he had to do everything he could to beat Drexel freshman Antonio Mininno 8-7. Elsewhere in Troy, Utah Valley, there's that guy again, there's that name again, there's that school again, that guy Matt Findlay and Virginia Sam Krivus both beat Nebraska All-American Chad Red on the day. Another Husker, Isaiah White, had a rough day as well. The former Division II national champion fell to Ebed, Gerald of Drexel, and Demetrius Romero of Utah Valley. Number 17, Purdue went 2-0, blasting Bloomsburg 35-5 and Drexel 25-14. Number 21, Wyoming beat Edinboro 33-6 and Virginia 21-9. I'm going to give Sacred Heart coach Johnny Clark some time here. Sacred Heart is no stranger to this show. I had their old coach Andy Lausier on the show on 2 different occasions, but he's now at Davidson, and Clark is running the show at SHU. On Saturday in Troy, that's New York, like the capital region, outside of Albany, Sacred Heart won 2 duels, which was the exact amount of duels they won last year. They won 2 duels against Division I opposition, which has only happened sparingly since former coach Andy Seras left, like 10-plus years ago. Not only did they win 2 duels against Division I competition, they won 2 duels in Division I competition in the same day. Now, I tried to look this up, and the Internet Archive kind of sucks when trying to pull up a database-driven site like the old Intermat, which I used to run 10 years ago. But the most likely scenario that saw Sacred Heart ever win 2 Division I duels in one day was when Seras was coaching them and the Pioneers were in the CAA, and they had this thing called the CAA Duels, which was hosted at George Mason. Back then, the CAA had like 11, 12 teams. Hofstra was in there, Old Dominion, George Mason, Drexel, Boston University. Boston College was even in there for a year before they dropped wrestling. Anyway, that was the most likely scenario that Sacred Heart, which was actually like on the fringe of being ranked at the time. Andy Seras had some good dudes come through, and it wasn't just Payam Zarenpour. I mean, there were some, like Sherwood Fendrick. I mean, there were some really good dudes that wrestled at Sacred Heart when Andy was coaching there. Anyway, this was also Sacred Heart's first Division I win in the last 8 years over a team not named Bloomsburg, Davidson, or VMI. Ironically, or perhaps coincidentally, or perhaps I'm using that term completely incorrectly, Sacred Heart did beat Bloomsburg on Saturday, but the win I'm talking about here is the 24-22 win over the Citadel. So, Bloomsburg and the Citadel both fall victim to Sacred Heart the first time they've beaten 2 Division I teams in the same day, probably since the last, I don't know, which president was there. It might have been the second Bush administration. I don't even know. Anyway, 3 things you likely don't know about Sacred Heart. 1, its program started in 1999. 2, it's in Fairfield, Connecticut. And 3, it's the only Catholic university in the country with a Division I wrestling program. While we're talking about religious schools doing cool things, Cal Baptist is in its first year transitioning from Division II to Division I, which means the Lancers are in a bit of a no man's land when it comes to postseason competition. Coach Lennie Zalesky's squad earned its first win as a Division I program over another Division I program on Saturday with a 28-10 win over Cal Poly. So after my kids go to sleep and my wife is settling in, trying to, deal with the whole 20-plus hours of traveling and crossing international date line, I sat down and was like, okay, what scores do I still need to pick up? Well, I saw that Western State, Colorado, more on that in a second, and Nebraska-Kearney were wrestling. So as I watched the closing bouts of Western Colorado's 18-17 win, I love small college wrestling because of the cool, wacky things that go on. So Western Colorado, and I'm saying that correctly because Western Colorado was formerly known as Western State College. Then it became Western State Colorado University. According to old coach and I believe current AD Miles Van Hee, for nothing more just to keep the merchandise that said WSC relevant. I guess all that old gear ran out and the Board of Visitors said, okay, we're Western Colorado University now. So the fall by Connor Schmidt at 197 gave Western Colorado a 4-point lead heading into heavyweight. And Kearney's Jared Hendricks did everything he could to score bonus points and try to send the duel to criteria or win outright. Came up just short 10-3, which clinched the duel for the Mountaineers. This was under a mat lamp. There were dudes out there with their chest painted, hooping and hollering around the mat. I mean, it was a wild atmosphere. I mean, not unlike what we saw at University of Mary, which actually gave us a shout-out on their the Marauders Athletics website the other day. So Adam Aho will be on short time within the next couple weeks. We're going to talk about the MAC Mob and all that stuff anyway, but we're talking about Western State right now. Western Colorado. So another thing about Western Colorado, I'm just throwing all sorts of knowledge out here today. They have this distinction of being the highest school in college sports. And no, I don't mean that kind of high with the laws they have out in Colorado. I mean the altitude. Gunnison, Colorado sits 7,700 feet above sea level. The University of Wyoming, as you may have heard me say on our Mark Branch episode earlier this week, they are the highest in Division I at just a shade over 7,200 feet, which is a good 1,000 feet over Colorado Springs. So, and in case you're wondering, yes, geography nerd as a kid, 7th grade, Geography B, Gildersleeve Middle School, Newport News. Look it up in like the Seahawks, whatever the heck the name of our yearbook was. Yeah, I was that guy. I was the one your parents warned you about. No, because I was the nerd with the glasses and the sports almanac. Yeah, that's the one you worried about, not the one with the tattoos and the motorcycle. Yeah, I'm not that guy. I got the tattoos, though. The last time Clackamas Community College tasted defeat came back in 2015 when Division I Oregon State topped the Cougars. And this is the narrative of winning streaks will continue. Wow, let's try that again. And this narrative of winning streaks will continue as Clackamas won its 40th straight duel, topping NAIA Eastern Oregon 34-10 on Saturday. The Clackamas win streak is the nation's third longest in any division, behind NAIA Grandview, which has won 64 dual meets in a row dating back to November 7th, 2014, so just over 4 years. Yeah, the Vikings were narrowly defeated by Iowa State. Yeah, that Iowa State, 22-18. Here's another thing to think about that's kind of scary. Brandon Wright, U.S. national team freestyle, pretty good guy, missed weight at 133. Yeah, what happens if he makes weight? Does Grandview beat Iowa State? That's something we will never know, and I think it still haunts Nick Mitchell to this day. In case you're wondering, Penn State's streak is second behind Grandview at 45 and counting. In Division III, Springfield won the city championship, and I mean the Springfield City Championship, beating the other 3 college wrestling programs in Springfield, Massachusetts. The Pride beat Western New England 24-17, American International 45-8, and Springfield Tech 45-6. Now to some notable tournament nuggets. Oh, the first one, hold on, I got to take a sip here because I've got some Shell's Fire Brick here. This stuff is amazing. And that's good stuff. Amber, it's a Vienna-style lager. Man, just wets that whistle just to get through this tournament stuff perfectly. Have I mentioned I love Minnesota beer? So those notable tournament nuggets, we're going to start out in Fargo, where Mike Kwame is still likely buying beers at the Bison Turf. Do you not know Kwame? I mentioned him the other night. Well, just ask Chris Willard about the trip to... Oh, wait, Chris Willard wasn't there. Anyway, Kwame was one of the dudes who was with me and Julia Salata when we were at Olympic Late Night down in Rio, photobombing Ryan Seacrest. Yeah, a North Dakota State alum. He was happy about the win the other night against Northern Illinois. So, North Dakota State. That's what I was getting to. Gable Steveson, wrestling unattached, won the Bison Open, beating 2017 All-American Tanner Hall of Arizona State 3-1 in sudden victory in the finals. Now, Minnesota beat Air Force the other night, 33-3 out in Colorado Springs. So, as of this moment, this magic moment, Stevenson's on red shirt, but for how long he stays there remains to be seen. Anything else notable from the Bison, other than Lee Pritz reminding me where he taught me how to play blackjack on Friday night? No, not really. I mean, other than Joe Russell, who gave me some words of wisdom years ago that said the season doesn't start until you have a hot dog at the Bison. Oh, yeah, Arizona State was there, and returning national champion Zahid Valencia won at 174 pounds, picking up 3 falls in a combined 4 minutes and 48 seconds. In Des Moines at the Grandview Open, it was mostly a red-shirting freshman showcase. His titles were won by Nebraska's Alex Thompson, Iowa State's David Carr, and the Iowa duo of Nelson Brands and Anthony Cassiope, who spent 9 minutes and 5 seconds on the mat with 4 falls. Kaufman, Brandon St. Louis, which used to be in Omaha because Mike Denning was the coach in Nebraska Omaha. Now he's the coach at Maryville, which is in St. Louis. Yeah, so anyway, at the Kaufman brand, which I think has added another name to it, Brock Mahler of Missouri won again. Every time this kid wins a tournament, he's going to get on short-time shots. It could be the Afton Quadrangular for all I care. I want more Brock Mahler. That is the baddest name in wrestling we got right now. At the Northern Colorado Open, hey, that guy Aaron Brooks won again. This time over some guys you might have heard of. What's also interesting about that tournament is Northern Colorado's Rico Montoya, NCAA qualifier last year at 133. Yeah, he won at 125 pounds. Johnson and Wales had 5 champions and scored 153.5 points to win the Roger Williams Invitational up in Bristol, Rhode Island. One thing some of you folks don't know is how active and competitive Division III is. Johnson and Wales returning national champion Jay Albus, who saw both positive and negative comments from fans after his first period tech fall against a Division I opponent last week. Well, he was upended 6-4 by Southern Maine's Peter Delgado in overtime in the finals at 125. Not to bring up Albus's loss in a negative light, but seriously, folks, if you would just go to a Division III tournament, it's in Roanoke, Virginia this year, and start it following as a whole, you will see the competitiveness that is among some of the best in the world. I'm getting off my script here. I'm not talking about, don't be a technique snob. Don't sit there, oh, it's bad wrestling. Don't sit there and look at it under the microscope of, I'm comparing it to Penn State and Iowa. You know what? Some of those guys don't wrestle very well sometimes either. You're going to say you're going to confide because they're the most talented. That means that they wrestle the best and the crisp. It doesn't always work like that. And you know what? Sometimes super great technique, you get to see it once. Yeah, sometimes it can be boring. Sometimes a 16-14 sloppy match by 2 guys that are out there laying it on the line is more exciting to watch. I'm not saying that D3 wrestling is sloppy and 16-14. What you see in Division III wrestling is a level of competitiveness that is unlike most levels of wrestling in this sport. I mean, I have had the opportunity to announce the biggest and best tournaments this world has to offer. The World Championships, the Olympics, the Division I Championships, and the Division III Championships. The NAI Championship, the Division III Championships is one of the most fun tournaments on the planet because as a sports fan, you will look at things like, why do people go crazy like when Virginia lost in the round ball tournament? They were the number 1 seed. Why was it a big thing when the 16 beat the 1? Because it never happened before. Why was it a big deal when 15 seeds beat 2 seeds? Because it's drama. The little guy's not supposed to beat the big dog. Well, in Division III, throw the seeds out the window because craziness happens. It makes the event more fun. These guys don't have scholarships. They're wrestling for the love of it. And you know what? They deserve your respect. And there's more Division III schools in this country that wrestle than there are Division I schools. That's a lot of alumni out there. And you know what? That's a lot of opportunities for you to adopt a team. You know, if you live like near Iowa City, go up the road to Mount Vernon and check out Cornell College. In Pennsylvania, there's no shortage of Division III schools that could use another butt in the stands or another couple friends. I mean, I remember me and my buddy Adrian used to go to Elizabethtown wrestling matches. We crack some beers in the parking lot. Then we go in and watch and just talk wrestling and watch wrestling. Okay, you can do that. I wouldn't advise necessarily cracking beers in the parking lot. I mean, that was like 10, 12 years ago, but like you get the idea. There are opportunities to support wrestling. And you know what? Get away from the technique and the technical snobbery. Watch wrestling because there are exciting events that happen in every single level of wrestling. Okay, back off my soapbox. Johnson and Wales had champions. Jordan Robinson at 133, Gabe McDaniel at 141, Damani Burns at 149, Camry Thomas at 184, and Michael DiNardo at 197. North Central won the Trine Invitational outdistancing second place Olivet, 149.5 to 127. Out in California, they had a whole pile of internet. West Hills College edged Bakersfield College, 158.5 to 158 to win the Southeast Wrestling Alliance Conference. That is the California Community Colleges League. That is at one of 4 conferences that are within the larger California Community College Athletic Association. They wrestled the fall semester only. West Hills had 3 champs. Bakersfield, which is the Renegades, they had 4. Not much on the women's side to report other than Emmanuel beat King and the University of the Cumberlands in dual meet competition. And as always, these scores and more available at the nation's most comprehensive college wrestling scoreboard at almanac.mattalkonline.com or mattalkonline.com and click that scoreboard link. Follow me on Twitter at Jason M. Bryant. Sign up for the newsletter for free, mattalkonline.com/news. But all that stuff's free. But if you want to say thank you, the scoreboard, this show, all these other shows on the network, Short Time is completely fan-supported. You want to help this out? You want to say thank you? I'll take an email that says thank you, man. I appreciate it. But if you want to join the team and send a contribution our way, you can do that at mattalkonline.com/join the team. Oh, man, didn't expect to get on a D3 rant. You know, I write this thing out, and I go through it, and, you know, sometimes I just get fired up. Yep, sometimes you just get a little fired up. I'd like to thank you for spending your time with me. This has been Short Time Shots for November 10th, 2018, and as I say, you've always got time for Short Time. The Short Time Wrestling Podcast is proudly outfitted by Compound Clothing. Shirts, singlets, custom gear orders, everything you need. Call up Cliff and the crew at cmpteamwear.com. If you've made it this far, I'm guessing you like the show. Well, why don't you subscribe if you haven't done so already by going to mattalkonline.com/listen. That'll give you a list of various different ways that you can subscribe and listen to the show for free, whether it be Apple Podcasts, your Android app. This show has an app for its own self on iOS and Android. And there's a bunch of other places you can find this show by going to mattalkonline.com/listen. That's how you can listen each and every episode. Thanks for listening. Now go subscribe.